Welcome to the Pack Edge, unpacking cutting-edge trends in packaging and processing. The era of digital technology is one of tremendous possibilities for innovation and growth. However, despite its many advantages, it's not immune from challenges. Digital innovations do indeed bring a new level of cyber complexity, including to the manufacturing industry. Trends such as remote access and industrial Internet of Things connectivity make manufacturing more efficient, but they also create new points of weakness that can be exploited. As the manufacturing industry continues to adopt greater levels of technology and connectivity, a robust cybersecurity strategy is essential. We're here today with Andy Lemaski and Ben Spencer of PMMI, the Association for Packaging and Processing Technologies, to talk about getting the necessary tools in place against cyber threats in the manufacturing space. I'd like to start by asking, how has cybersecurity for the manufacturing industry evolved over time?
Well, cybersecurity originated as a means of preventing computer attacks against different computer systems and telephony. It really affected other industries like healthcare and financial services, and particularly insurance. But manufacturing was fairly insulated because decades ago, machinery operated in an isolated environment. There was no interconnectivity between machines or connectivity to the internet. Machines just operated on the plant floor, independent of each other. As the decades went on, that started to change with the introduction of things like programmable logic controllers and human-machine interfaces. Gradually, machinery has become more and more interconnected, and that's elevated cybersecurity as a potential area of risk in the manufacturing environment.
Does the manufacturing industry today have adequate cybersecurity programs in place to prepare for these risks, Ben?
That's a great question, Liz. And I really want to point out that it's not if a cyber attack is going to happen, it's when. During the pandemic alone, phishing rose about 220%. That statistic should scare a lot of manufacturers because they have a lot of people in their organization, specifically in their plant, that didn't have corporate email addresses before. They didn't have machines that were connected to the internet, like Andy was talking about. And they're the front line, they need to be trained. So some organizations do have training programs, but a lot do not. So it's definitely an area to improve upon.
Andy, what do you have to add?
Well, I completely agree. The manufacturing industry, as it continues to adopt increasing levels of automation and interconnectivity between machines, a robust cybersecurity strategy is really essential. More importantly, it's the kind of discipline that continues to change. Different threats and risk vectors, they're changing over time. So it's really important that cybersecurity strategy continues to evolve over time and that it gets revisited and tested and sort of replanned over and over again as time goes on to adapt to the changing threat landscape.
Ben, what are some of the most important actions to take?
Well, I think one that any organization can take is going out and getting a risk assessment. Go to an individual third party and have them assess everything on your network. This will get you an asset inventory, which then you can use to protect the assets on your inventory. It's a very easy step to take.
We've been having a lot of conversations through our PMMI Max member forum between PMMI members as well as consumer packaged goods companies about bridging the gap between information technology and operational technology. And one of the reasons why that gap is so important is that we're hearing that in a lot of cases, companies will rely on IT to implement a patch or a fix for a cybersecurity vulnerability. And there's a lot of this tendency to sort of throw it over the fence. IT will worry about it, or OT will implement something when they have some production downtime. And what we're hearing from the industry is that there's a lack of coordination and proactive planning that goes into addressing these cybersecurity vulnerabilities that come up. And so what I'd say is it's of critical importance to proactively have meetings between your IT and OT groups so that you can think about which devices are you planning to patch or maintain, who's going to be responsible for doing that work, when are you going to schedule that in so it doesn't disrupt manufacturing operations? Really what we're trying to strike here is the optimal balance between cybersecurity and manufacturing productivity.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the last thing we can mention is about sensitive data. Where and how do you store it? If you look into that, you can figure out what your crown jewels are and train your employees, all of them, on how to protect that specific data.
Great points. What are some misconceptions regarding cybersecurity that manufacturers, big and small, should consider?
I think it's going back to what we were talking about on the previous point with the plant workers or anybody in your company or organization that might not sit at a desk all day and be on a computer. They really need to be trained. I feel like that is a very strong point of entry for these, hackers or cyber wrongdoers, and it's the easiest one to combat.
I agree, Ben, and I think another common misconception is around cyber insurance. There's a tendency for a lot of manufacturers, and in particular smaller companies, to think maybe they don't need separate cyber insurance coverage, or that maybe cyber incidents might be covered as part of their broader business liability policy. And this really couldn't be further from the truth. Cyber insurance is meant to be a distinct and separate insurance policy that's designed to protect your business while it operates in the digital world from incidents that might occur like phishing or customer vendor payment fraud or things like ransomware. Cyber insurance has become one of the go-to protection mechanisms when an incident occurs. And that's why PMMI has partnered with the National Association of Manufacturers to offer our cyber cover program that helps manufacturers specifically both proactively monitor their technology infrastructure for vulnerabilities that come up so they can mitigate them before an incident happens, as well as provide that insurance protection after an incident has occurred and get you services that can help restore your operations as quickly as possible.
That's such a strong point. I mean, if anybody out there goes and they Google and look or turn on the news and look for any recent cyber attacks, the companies that had cyber insurance were very glad that they did at the time. I think the last thing that we can mention with that is having an adequate incident response program. Not just building one at present time and then letting it sit. You have to reevaluate it throughout the year, and you have to test everything in that incident response plan. That'll allow your business to be resilient and keep it up and operational.
So what I'm hearing is that best practices for cybersecurity require a holistic approach across the entire company at every vulnerable point of entry, correct?
Absolutely. And I think having a solid cybersecurity approach involves balancing mechanisms that both effectively protect your operating environment from different cyber threats, as well as are things that are easy for your employees to follow and that they can follow consistently to make sure that those best practices continue to protect your business as you go about operating in today's landscape.
Andy and Ben, thanks for joining us today. Really great points on how manufacturing companies can stay just one step ahead from cyber threats. So if you're interested in learning more, we encourage you to download PMMI's 2021 white paper on cybersecurity or check out PMMI's new cyber health blog on pmmi.org, which is updated every 2 weeks with new content to help manufacturers adapt to evolving cyber threats. Of course, we also encourage you to register for PAC Expo International, October 23rd through 26th in Chicago. For more information, visit pacexpointernational.com. Thanks for joining.